Namaskaram. Welcome to everybody. I can see that some of you have joined. Thank you very much. Hi, Piali. Can you all hear me okay? Hi, Sunita. I'm just going to double check that you can hear me slightly okay. I think there's a slightly patchy image. We're just going to keep going because we are plugged in here. So welcome to all of you, and thank you so much for joining us on this International Dance Day. I feel very, very blessed and lucky to be doing this, sharing this with you on International Dance Day. And in fact, today I've been really reflecting on my journey with dance and just feeling very heartful and very full of gratitude for everything that dance has given me. So there is so much that I could share and so much that I could say. And I think to make this work in the time that we have, I'm going to choose a few anecdotes really and focus on those, hoping that they will give a sense of the journey that I've had. Thank you very much, Mira, for inviting me to participate here on March UK and for setting it up, and thank you to the whole team for working so hard to put this together. So my journey with dance started right from the very beginning. I was lucky enough to I was born into the Bhavan. So the Bhavan UK is the premier teaching institution for classical Indian art and culture here in the UK. And it just so happened that when Mathur Krishnamurthy and his wife Lakshmi, so they were the founders, when they arrived from India, somehow my parents connected with them. I still don't actually know quite how that happened, but my parents connected with them. My parents were here, arrived here from Guyana. So my ancestry is Indian, but my parents were born and brought up in Guyana in South America. It's that branch of the Indian diaspora. So somehow my parents met up with Mathurji and Lakshmi, and my parents were really founder members of the Bhavan. So this was way before the building in South Kensington. This was when the Bhavan was still a very, very small space on Oxford Street. And in fact, we lived there for a short period of time. I actually lived in that space with my parents in a flat in the same building. So the Bhavan grew as I grew, and this whole sense of being surrounded by classical Indian art from the very start of my life, I think I've really just absorbed that. I feel like I've been soaked in that right from the beginning, and that has been the main influence really in shaping me. So at the same time, my schooling was very interesting. So I went to a school called St. James, and I started learning Sanskrit from the age of 4 and reciting the Upanishads. So that, Ishavasyam idam sarvam yat kinchit jagatyan jagat tena tyaktena bhunjita mavrita kasya suddhanam. You really don't forget what they teach you when you're 4. So I was very, very lucky to have been imbued with all of this right from the beginning. And that combination of the school environment with the Upanishads and Advaita and Sanskrit, and the Bhavan environment of dance, and also being surrounded with music and Indian culture, those were the dominant influences for me. And somehow I was never interested in a lot of the other stuff going on around. So I know my friends used to tease me because I never knew anything about pop music, even as a teenager. I just wasn't interested in any of that. Somehow I was in my own little world. And the core question that I did always have was this burning desire to understand how the universe works, right? I had that sense of seeking, and I think this kind of spiritual seeking of wanting to understand and know experientially what is life all about, what is this all about, that was also very much present for me. So my main dance teacher at the Bhavan was Prakash Yadagude, who still teaches there. And every teacher, so I was learning Bharatanatyam with him, the wonderful, beautiful Pandanalu style of Bharatanatyam. And every teacher has their own style, their own approach. And the thing that I remember about learning from him was that he had a way, when it came to teaching you specific dance pieces, dance items, he would choose things that were really suited to you. So I remember, he would look at you and you could sort of see the cogs turning, you could see the thoughts going around in his mind, and he would pick pieces that were specifically suited to you. And I think that has been a huge blessing, because even though he never explicitly said it, you could tell, you just knew that was how he chose a dance piece for you. And what that did was that it actually allowed you to bring out and express your own swabhava, right? We have this term in dance, swabhava, your own essence, if you like, your own personality, your own feeling, your own sensibility. And that was a great gift for me. So moving on to, I then went to study with Padma Subramaniam in Chennai, or Madras as it then was. And that came about really on the instigation of Dr. John Marr, who's a wonderful Indologist and very close family friend. And he noticed that I'd had this intense interest in sculpture and in the link between dance and sculpture. So he suggested that I go and study with Padma Subramaniam, because of course her life's work has been to reconstruct the karanas, that is the dance sequences, the dance units that are described in the Natya Shastra and are also sculpted onto several of the temples. So working with the text and sculpture, she has created this extraordinary body of work, and she is an incredible performer, choreographer, and also scholar. So that was a very, very different style of movement. And I thought I would show you one of the karanas, because it's not a dance style that is seen very often. So I wanted to just take a moment to show you a little bit of that. I'll show you one. So the karana that I'm going to show you is called Bhujanga Trasita. It's the 24th karana. And I've chosen this because it has in it the posture of the dancing Nataraja. So this iconography of Nataraja is one of the most recognizable iconographies anywhere in the world. And that's why I thought I'd show you the movement, and you'll be able to identify the exact position and the moment in the movement where that comes. Okay, so this is the posture that you will all recognize, the dancing Shiva, and it's always shown on this side. I think the image may have flipped there, I'm not entirely sure, but it's actually always shown on the right side. So the full movement is this. And then you also do it on the other side. Okay, I'll do it one more time. So learning with her took my whole dance experience to a whole new level. And then I came back and went to SOAS and had some extraordinary teachers there. So I also wanted to say that it's my understanding of dance and of the depth and spirituality of dance, yes, it comes from my dance teachers, but it actually also comes very much from other teachers who I had. So my philosophy teachers at university, for example, were very, very influential for me. And throughout this whole period of time, I had wonderful, wonderful performance opportunities, excellent performance opportunities for which I am profoundly grateful and really, really enjoyed. So then, or I would say as well as that, I was also clear that I hadn't sort of found my thing. You know, I never wanted to have a dance school. I never wanted to go down that particular route that I was encouraged to go down. I just knew that that wasn't the thing that I wanted to do. I had this sense of universality about the dance, but I knew that I hadn't quite found my own expression in it. So between 2005 and 2008, I actually sort of stepped back from all of that. I left the dance world, I left my teachers, I left that path, and I sort of really entered the unknown. Joseph Campbell described it as entering the forest where there is no path. And this was both a professional change and also a personal change, because in 2005 I decided to complete my marriage, get a divorce, and start a whole new part of my life on a personal level. So this was all happening at the same time. So it really was, you know, socially and psychologically, this was really, really a big deal. And it was very challenging, but it was also very exhilarating. And at that time in my life that was so new, so challenging, such a roller coaster, it was dance that kept me sure-footed. Dance was always in my feet, it was always in my belly, it was always in my bones and always in my skin. And I'm very clear that dance has kept me going and nourished me through so much. Not only that, but by moving away from a traditional path, I was very much able to connect with the universality and the spirituality in the dance. And that I find very interesting, that sort of by shedding and letting go of the norms and the structures that I'd become used to, I freed myself to really dive in and become marinated in the tradition. And when I say the tradition, I mean the art form, but I also mean the spiritual principles that underlie it. So through dance, and because dance had given me such a confidence and such a certainty in my body, this meant that I really started to deliberately live more intuitively in relationship with my body. So I remember in 2006, I actually made a commitment to live in partnership with my body. That's a really big step, because it meant that rather than turning outwards and looking outwards for guidance and suggestions, I was living from here. I was living from my core. And really, it's only because of dance that I had learned to trust the sensations in my body and trust the fabric of my body. So this living in partnership with my body is something that I've written about. I started blogging about it, and the blog is still there if you want to go and have a look at it. It's called The Way of the Body. I haven't written for quite a while, but there's still plenty there. So I'm just doing a time check here, because really there is so much more that I can say. But I want to dive into what I mean by the spirituality. So when I'm talking about the spirituality in dance, I'm speaking specifically about the energetic coherence that it creates in the neurological system. So this is not something that I was taught in class. This is something that I became aware of through my yoga practice. So I mentioned that at school I was introduced to meditation, and then later on in 2003, I took initiation into Kriya Yoga. So Kriya Yoga works very internally with the breath and with with the subtler aspects of the body. And that practice made me aware, experientially aware, of how energy moves and lives in the body, particularly through the spine. And it was that actually gave a whole new dimension to my understanding of dance. So I suddenly started to realize that there's a reason why we are taught dance, and we're taught the dance steps in a particular way. So for all the dancers listening, that there's a reason why we do everything first on the right side and then on the left, and we repeat that and repeat that. And here's the reason: that when we do that, we are activating both halves of the brain and the central nervous system in the spine. And we are bringing both of those halves, the Pingala and Ida, to use a yogic terminology, we're bringing both of those into coherence with each other. And that creates a whole brain state, which is a state of incredible coherence and stability. So it actually creates a deep sense of stability and calm in the body on a cellular level, also on a mental level and an emotional level as well. So through my practice of Kriya Yoga, I started to have a completely new appreciation for dance as a yogic practice. Now, I think many dancers will recognize intuitively and experientially that they experience dance in this very yogic way, right? In this very spiritual way. And I think understanding how it works technically really helps with that. So yes, so on that note, because classical Indian dance works with the physical and with the subtler aspects, so this expression, the bhava, the sense of expressing emotion, and all of that is brought together with the physical, this gives rise to a very full spectrum experience of self, which again is very much in the yogic tradition, which is why I now always say that dance is my fullest yoga. I'm aware, I'm just going to do a check to see if some questions have come in. Okay, spiritual principles, some of the highlights. All right, so I wanted to come now to, so an example of how dance has helped me in a very practical way. So to sort of navigate challenges and to be a very meditative practice. So in 2017, I was filming on location. This was for a big Channel 4 show on relationships that I was presenting. And the TV world is a whole other world. I mean, the level of, there's so much going on, particularly with that kind of reality show. So the level of stress was really, really high. And what I would do when we were on location in Thailand, and every morning I would get up and dance. That was the first thing that I did to prepare myself for the day. I didn't do my meditation, I didn't do any yoga, I got up and I danced. And that was what brought me into this incredible state of calm. And I remember my colleagues saying, "How you always look so zen, VENA. How are you always so zen and so calm?" Well, it was because of dance. It was dance that literally allowed me to float through that experience in a very graceful way. I wanted to come now to the current situation that we are all in. A lot of people have been asking me, and my students have been asking me, what do you think is happening? What do you think is going on? What is it all about? And I think before I answer that with words, I wanted to answer it with dance, because I think that for me, when I first became aware of the virus, my sense was, okay, this little tiny thing that is causing havoc has leapt out of the cosmic soup. It's leapt out of the cosmic soup, and it feels like a big bang on a psychological level and on a social level. It feels like this is an opportunity for us to, it's like it's a new beginning, and the energy is all loosened up. So from a tantric perspective, this is a moment where the energy is very free and very loose and very available. However, I don't think that what comes next is a done deal. I know that there are a lot of people in the self-development and spiritual world who are saying, oh, you know, we are moving into a new level of consciousness, etc., etc. And honestly, I don't think it's a done deal at all. But I think the opportunity here is for us each individually to decide what kind of world we want to create and then go about making that. We need to decide, how are we going to use this loosened up energy? And we shouldn't wait until we're out of lockdown, because now is the time to start building that. Now is the time to start paying attention to that. So I would like to share with you, I've been working, in the last couple of days, I've been listening to the sounds of the Sanskrit alphabet, going back to my childhood and being introduced to Sanskrit. So the vowels of the Sanskrit alphabet, to me, represent unbounded consciousness, which is what we are in now. This is the state we are in. We have these forms, these energies, absolutely open and unbounded and available to us. And what I'm going to play, I'll play some music for you, which is the sounds of the Sanskrit vowels, open-ended, a, I, U, etc. So they're open-ended and then they're unbound. And then at the end, they have a consonant. So it becomes im. So I've been playing between the unbounded and the bounded. So for me, the bounded is where we need to try and grasp these energies and shape them, bind them into the forms that we want to make. So I will express that to you through dance. I'm sure it will be a lot more eloquent, and then I will come back and chat with you more. Wonderful. So for me, I think the opportunity that I see is for refinement, in the sense that I think we need to look at how much we're using on the planet and really think about lessening that. But the reason reason I use the word refinement rather than cutting back is because I think cutting back has this sense of deprivation about it, and I don't think it's about deprivation at all. I think it is about looking at the incredible resources and abundance that there is all around us on the planet, and making changes to the way that we do bind those unbounded things, right? To make them practical and usable in the physical world, we have to create boundaries and we have to bind them in particular ways. So I personally am thinking about refinement and how to make that kind of refinement in every aspect of my life, because I think that that is the opportunity that has leapt out of the cosmic soup, and that's how I want to sculpt and mold this energy through my dancing body and also through my life. I'm just going to see if there are any. Okay, another question I have is, why did I decide to come back to dance? Okay, to performance. So I would say that I kept to coming back to dance performance, because for me, I never really left dance at all. But I did leave the dance world and performing on those big stages. And last year, so this question is in reference to the fact that last year I came back and created a new show called The Shape of Stillness. And the reason for that, honestly, I didn't really decide. It arose out of my meditation the year before. I distinctly remember sitting one day in meditation, and I had this phrase come up, the shape of stillness. And it was right there, and this happens a lot to me, that things just pop up. It couldn't be ignored, and I didn't know what it was, but I sat with it and worked with it, and it slowly revealed itself that it wanted to be a dance piece, and that was what I followed. I literally followed it and took the next step and the next step. The other thing I will say is that I feel like I've been building my body of work over a very long period of time. So I've been coaching and teaching people self-transformation tools since 2008, and dance has always been at the core of that. So I get people to work with their bodies. I'm not teaching them classical Indian dance, and I'm not teaching them Advaita dance steps, but I am giving them the tools with which to connect with their body, to learn how to inhabit the space of their body, and to connect with their intuition through their physicality. So dance has always been there through my body of work, and I feel like I have finally found my thing. Coming back to performing last year felt very much like a culmination point of this building of body of work, and it feels like it's now going to blossom, because in fact I'm about to launch my online school. Actually, here I am, the first time announcing it publicly. I am about to launch my online school called the School for Empowered Living, where I will be sharing juicy spiritual tools for people to create fulfilling lives. So yes, there's been this culmination, and I'm very glad that dance performance became part of that. So I think I don't see any other questions coming up at the moment. And I think we are also at the end of our time. So thank you very, very much for joining us here on March UK. Thank you very much to Mira for inviting me to present today, and to her whole team of volunteers, Ambika, Subalakshmi, Vidya and Suhani. And please do join us again tomorrow evening at 6 o'clock for the wonderful Bisaka Sarkar, who will be presenting tomorrow. Thank you.